We just saw Men, Women, and Children, and on this show I take my friends, we go see a movie, and then we review it in the car. After the review, we have a discussion. The review part is spoiler-free, so if you're on the fence and trying to decide if this is a movie for you, watch the review part, and we'll make recommendations. And if you've already seen the movie and just want to know everything we thought, or if this just isn't a movie for you and you want to hear everything we have to say about it, watch the whole thing. So I've been kind of looking forward to this movie for a while. I really like the director quite a bit. I like I like a lot of his earlier movies, and this looked to me to be kind of a promising story about online security as well as sort of modern loneliness, modern. What sort of the culture of not just necessarily the internet, but just the culture of people being disconnected from each other and how they deal with that and what problems that can lead to. And it did a really good job of painting with a very wide brush a number of different perspectives. It didn't tell us one story. It didn't have a bunch of stereotypical characters. It had a bunch of stories that interconnected in a way, but it was also showing us, sort of extremes of one end and the other in these different characters that were in it. As far as what I will say outside of spoilers, there were some people that left our theater, that left our screening while we were watching it, and I think what happened there was it's an R-rated film, and it depicts it depicts pornography in a fairly realistic way, kind of like what was shown in Don John. It's kind of in that same vein. Although the movie I think feels a little bit more like Trust in the way that it treats the subject matter that it's dealing with. But there are some scenes that I think what happened with the people that walked out was that it was two generations, and it was a group of four women, and three of them were in their 30s or 40s, and one of them looked like they were probably a teenager, maybe early 20s. So it must have been like a mom and daughter or something like that was into it, and I would imagine that would be an uncomfortable way to watch this movie, especially in the first act when they sort of. You're not sure how far they're going to go with what they're showing on screen, but there is, there is some frontal nudity and there is some, depiction of pornography and that sort of thing in it. But that's an important and realistic thing to have as part of this story. It doesn't shy away from those things. It shows you kind of how that really is, how that really looks. But I truly enjoyed the film, and so if it's something that it looks interesting to you, the ensemble cast is great. This is Spanglish Adam Sandler. It's funny people Adam Sandler instead of typical Adam Sandler, and all the rest of the performances were really great. And it was truly an ensemble movie. It's not really centered around any one of the characters. It tells bits and pieces and gives you perspectives, but it also doesn't really come right out and say these people are right and these people are wrong. It just says here is a lot of different perspectives on the same thing, a lot of different ways of looking at the same situation, whether it's kids that are in high school that are trying for one thing or another, or it's a married couple trying for one thing or another, or it's a mother-daughter relationship or a father-son relationship. There's a lot of different permutations of what all of that's like. And so I really enjoyed all of that. And that's something I would talk a lot more about after we get to the discussion part, because when we can talk about spoilers, we can, get into more detail about the plot. But I think, it's a movie that if you want to go see it, it's worth coming in without, all the information or without all the backstory on the characters, beforehand. So I really liked it. I enjoyed it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. I don't know. trying to think if I have anything to say that you didn't already say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it probably, at its most basic, is a statement of almost like the human condition. Like, we all need love and we all need relationships. And that no matter how connected we think we are by technology, we really do need those human connections and those human relationships. So yeah, I would encourage people to see it as well.
Yeah, so that's our spoiler-free version. If it sounds like a good movie, stop the video now and go and check it out. Don't let us spoil anything for you. One of the things that I was kind of worried about early on was that it uses this framing device of the pale blue dot, the Carl Sagan project, and talking about how, the Earth is, in a cosmic sense, the Earth is nothing and we're nothing, and there's no real impact to what we are. And Ansel Elgort's character was sort of the person that was sort of holding that belief throughout the movie, and kind of had that sort of nihilistic approach to things, while still being like, but maybe there's still hope for me, or there's still hope for something. I was worried that they were just going to get way too esoteric with coming back to Carl Sagan and kept coming back to space, but I think it ended up being a really good reminder, and it ended up being a way to frame the story without it having to be a character in the movie's monologue, because Emma Thompson narrates the movie, but she's not a character in the movie. And she's omniscient as well. Like, she knows what everyone's thinking.
She's not narrating one person's life. It's
it starts out with Adam Sandler going online, or was it the son that goes online first?
I can't remember.
I think it's Adam Sandler goes online, and he has this. They go through his whole history of. He's using his son's computer to look for porn, for himself to watch. Not that he wasn't looking for his son's collection of porn or anything, but he finds porn in his son's history in his browser, and Emma Thompson's narrating all of this, and she's sort of saying he feels like he kind of didn't get to pass
a milestone for his son.
He missed this milestone that he and his dad sort of had with magazines and things like that in the past, and kind of how all that's changed. From your perspective, what did you like? What did you find interesting about it?
One of the reasons I do what I do is because I like people and I like their stories. And I thought they did a really good job of, like you said, portraying people and their stories in a way that was sometimes sort of, I don't want to say shocking, but sort of surprising, but yet not in a judgmental kind of way.
Yeah. And that's something, too, that the trailer sort of implies that, it's like, find out about the people that you think you know.
Right.
It has sort of this voyeuristic quality in the trailer, but really what it is that it's just showing you that, because of the way that people communicate now, there's a lot more depth and nuance to how they present themselves, how they do the things that they do. There's a cheat on your spouse commercial that shows up, and I think that's in the trailer as well, but it was called Virginia Madison or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It kept kind of taking me out of it, because Happy Madison is the name of Adam Sandler's
I didn't even
production
it's like
company.
Ashley Madison, I think.
So, yeah.
It didn't even occur to me.
But so you've got...
Well, and I was distracted that the guy she hooked up with the first time was the...
Dennis Haysbert?
Yes.
Yeah. So Adam Sandler and his wife are sort of having trouble, and they both basically decide to start having affairs. it's not clear. I mean, the movie makes it seem like they both decided at exactly the same time to do it, and they're like taking the exact same nights to do the exact same things, and you know, that's kind of it was a way to share that story, I guess. It was a way to put that together. I felt like that particular element was kind of weak, that like it's weird that they would both want exactly the thing that the other person wanted from them and not from them. But in the same token, I get it, because if you don't present it that way, if you don't make it equal, then you're going to, you know, something Adam Sandler does is going to make you think he's worse than she is, or vice versa.
Right.
So I understood the the reason that was done. And then you have, there's the teenage girl and her mother, Jennifer Garner, who's like overprotective.
Yeah, I had an issue with that, because we saw the father for like 10 seconds.
He showed up a couple times,
but he, you know, like, I feel like that, and maybe that's true, but it seemed like he knew what was going on, but wasn't really, like, I don't know if he just washed his hands of the whole thing, but wasn't really intervening for his daughter at all.
He did push a little bit. I mean, he would, like, the second time they showed him, he was like, you know, just let her be a teenager tonight.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to call her every day. You don't need to call her when she's gone for more than 2 hours. And I mean, I think probably the least realistic part of that story, and again, like, I think a lot of this stuff is, if you try and take it all at face value and take it all literally, it falls apart pretty quickly.
Right.
It's not realistic in and of itself, but it's a way to convey ideas and a way to tell you, to give you some of this information. Because, as an example, there's no way that, you know, a teenage girl would put up with someone like Jennifer Garner as her mom, and just surrender all of her online, you know, interactions and all of her.
Well, and I kind of wanted there to be a reason behind it, like that there was an issue in her past where she had been preyed upon, as, you know.
Well, but again, it's, you don't want to give any of the people an excuse.
Right.
You don't want to make anybody more sympathetic than anybody else.
Right.
So, you know, and out of everyone, as far as like what happens in the story, or what happens in the course of the movie, it just happens that Jennifer Gardner is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and she ends up doing what's probably the worst thing in the movie, which is causing Ansel Elgort's character to try to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because first his dad came in and deleted his Guild Wars account because he thought that, basically he just did it in a fit of rage because he was mad that his son was like talking about his mom with other people behind his back and that sort of thing. And so it was just sort of a petty move on his part, really. And so he's like really crushed by that, and he tries to call his like fairly secret girlfriend, who's Jennifer Garner's daughter, and Jennifer Garner has like taken all of her stuff away and has her phone and is pretending to be her and texting him back and saying like, I don't really care about you, I never did, I'm bored, all that kind of stuff. So he ODs, and she's actually, in reality, she has already snuck out of the house and is on the way over and saves him from ODing, because his dad didn't realize that he had done that. But like all of that stuff, and the fact that it just ends there, like that's another thing where it's like you see Jennifer Gardner realize what she's done, but the movie, again, it doesn't sit there and it doesn't judge any of it. It doesn't say like, and therefore she was the one that was wrong, or, you know, it doesn't judge the mother that was sort of like exploiting her daughter
Right.
with the online photos and things like that. There's a lot of people that do really terrible things in the movie, but they are also sympathetic to a point that you can see it from all these different perspectives. So I think it's an interesting movie to watch in terms of being able to have those conversations, about, not that every teenage girl is like one of the teenage girls that's in this movie, but most teenage girls are in some days like one of those girls, or some ways like one of the other ones another day, kind of thing. And, married people get bored with one another, and sometimes that means that they cheat, and sometimes that means that,
Something has to change.
yeah, and, married men still look at pornography. Like, there's stuff like that it doesn't judge it. It just puts it out there and gives you that conversation to have. And I could see it being a thing where, if you are under 18, I don't think people under 18 couldn't watch this movie, but it's something where I think it would be hard to be a teenager and watch this movie with your parents.
It's very real.
It's like something that you would have to almost do separately and then maybe talk about later, so that you're not quite as uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Just for feeling safe in all of that, or feeling safe with your feelings about it. But, and I mentioned trust earlier, and that was kind of the vibe I was getting throughout it, was that it's another kind of look at modern sexuality and modern ways of interacting, and the dangers and issues that surround all of that kind of stuff. But it was great in the way that it didn't shy away from any of those things, and it didn't judge any of these characters. Like, I didn't come out of the movie thinking, Jennifer Garner's a horrible person, or the mother that exploited her daughter online was a horrible person. Like, those were people that did stupid or horrible or misguided things, but they gave their motivations for why they were doing that, and they were believable, and they were the kind of things that is the kind of mistakes you make. Like, it is realistic in that, there's teenagers in this movie that make mistakes. There's adults in this movie that make mistakes.
Well, I think that's why it would be hard for teenagers to see, because I think when you're a teenager, things are more black and white. And so, like, you would either to talk about it before or afterwards to really sort of say, yeah, but did you notice all these shades of gray that were in there? I mean, yeah, Jennifer Garner does some terrible things, but why? Because she's really worried and she wants to keep her daughter safe. And, she has all of these people. Nobody does these things just for the sake of being awful.
But I think, I mean, the counter to that, again, is that, Jennifer Garner isn't the only representation of how an adult deals with that situation.
Right.
You've got Dean Norris's character, who doesn't really know how to relate to his son at all, isn't really, like, clued in on what he's doing online or what's going on in his life. That's another valid, like, parenting style that people could relate to. But then there's also the character that's, like, trying to get her daughter on the reality show. And so that kind of shows you this other, like, if you're a teenager and you think that, you want your mom to just be cool with you taking selfies and, doing whatever you want online and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, well, here's the opposite side of the coin. Like, here's someone that's actually making money off of taking pictures of their children for sale. Like, you're selling your daughter. You're actually, like, you're doing it legally. You're doing it in a way that's not, against the law, but it's a pretty slimy thing
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really thought it was interesting. It's a kind of movie I would love to talk to people at length about and kind of get a feel at length about what they
And it
thought
would
of
be
it.
a movie I would see again.
Yeah, I would too.
That I would watch again too.
It's also interesting to think about it as kind of a time capsule, because they talk too about how, like on 9/11, no one had cell phones really. You weren't texting people back then, and so it's kind of an interesting thing that 10 years from now, this movie will have lots of stuff in it that people are going to be like, really? They did that back then? Like,
they still used Facebook?
they had computers that, like, anyone could open everything they wanted, and yeah, it was really good. It was really interesting. And Jason, I think Labor Day was the last movie of his. I think I have that right.
Winslet?
Yeah, Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin.
Oh yeah.
That's
like
all. I
that.
really like that movie as
Yeah.
well. I may be getting that wrong. They may not be the same director, but I think that was the last one that he put out. Juno was his. Up in the Air was his. And J.K. Simmons comes back and has a daughter that gets pregnant again, but he's not nearly as cool about it in this movie as he was in Juno.
Juno. Yeah.
But yeah, it's really well done. It's really well made. It's also interesting watching it after I watched a documentary on the MPAA today, and looking at it from a perspective of how American culture will put an R rating on something that has sexual content
But was
in
this
it.
rated? Was this rated R?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
definitely.
No, I thought of that too.
It needed to be. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely needed to be.
Yeah.
There was, and I mean, those people that walked out, that was really what happened.
Yeah.
Was they were uncomfortable with the amount of nudity, and not only the amount of nudity, but the fact that they were showing they weren't showing like straight up pornography, like stuff
Right.
that you can't show in an R-rated movie, but they were showing like
Everything but. Yeah.
sort of like the entry sites or the
Right.
entry pages to
Yeah.
sites where they talk about things, and escort reviews and things like that. And it's like,
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about that. I mean, I think it's been a little while since we were in high school, but I think it, like you said, it's an interesting sort of snapshot of sex and how teenagers talk about sex and how they think about sex and sort of that first time and the
Yeah.
ways like that plays into their first experiences.
yeah. Yeah, the have you hooked up yet question, which is like a really, it's like a really polite way of saying, are you a virgin?
Yeah. Well,
Which is kind
polite,
of,
yeah.
it's like how our generation would have said it, like, are you still a virgin?
yeah.
But yeah, it's like, have you hooked up yet? It's like, no. Oh, all right. Well, and the girl that's faking it, it's like, oh yeah, but I always need practice, and
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
you're just pretending to be,
Right.
you're putting on this persona.
Which, yeah, then you could get into even bigger conversations about why is that cool? Like, why do we as a society think
yeah.
that's, yeah.
Definitely. So anyway, that was what we thought. Hope you enjoyed the review. That was Men, Women, and Children. If you do, like the video, subscribe on YouTube, and check out the written and video version of the reviews at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.
Bye.